to another episode of the Cast in the Darkness. I'm your host, Matt.
Clay. I'm Nick.
And we have here a special post-FAQ edition of our chapter pack reviews. We're going to be looking at Spoils of War. This one is like a month late.
Yeah.
But that's basically because we knew the FAQ was coming, we knew it would be enormous, and we knew that 90% of what we said about these cards would be completely irrelevant after the FAQ hit if we did it beforehand.
100%. We also knew that Clay was going to be in Newfoundland for 3 weeks.
No, we did it on purpose.
Right.
Completely on purpose.
So, we're going to be taking a look at Spoils of War. I'm going to kick us off with the first agenda out of the pack. Conquest.
He who makes a beast out of himself gets rid of the pain.
Which has already been seeing quite a bit of play in tournament play, the online metagames, and the store championships that are continuing to go on. We've been seeing a lot of Conquest decks. Mostly, Clay and I, we discussed this agenda a couple months ago when we were looking at the previews for the set as they were coming out. And I think that at the time I said that it was really good for splashing.
Yeah.
If you want to be a House Lannister deck and splash Greyjoy or Baratheon cards, or if you want to be a Baratheon, a Shy deck, and splash some of the good Greyjoy Holy stuff,
Yeah.
it's really good for that. You don't lose a lot when you lose some prized one stuff.
No.
Especially if you built your deck correctly, you can just take that power back.
Yeah. Yeah.
You build your deck expecting,
Exactly.
intending to lose.
Build
Well,
your
yeah.
deck around.
Don't see it as a crutch because it's, hey, look, there's more power there for me to take it.
That's right, yeah.
Later.
Whereas there's a lot of prized cards here that are a lot harder to jam into your decks.
Yeah.
Location cards getting prized too, it's more of a risk
Yeah. That
because
one,
people still play favorable ground, people still play fleeing to the wall, and there's a Greyjoy card in this pack especially that's going to impact the metagame greatly when it comes to location cards.
Sure. But I mean, when you look at that, there are some agendas that are played pre-FAQ. For example, that Pentoshi Manor that you liked so much may have been worth prize 2 instead of the extra 2 gold.
it's
Oh,
not
right,
now.
actually,
Not now.
It's now restricted.
Right, yeah. I mean, you're going to be hard pressed to include Pentoshi Manor, but something like
But there are other agendas, there are
Other locations.
that are potentially worth that too.
yeah, the issue
Over
in that
to
case is the opportunity cost of using Conquest as your agenda over something else. But Knights of the Hollow Hill is likely going to represent a smaller amount of the metagame,
Yeah.
and so those decks are going to have to find a new agenda for the most part.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, all in all, Conquest is certainly a playable agenda. You have to build for it, of course. Like, you can't just go willy-nilly, I'm gonna just completely include half my deck Greyjoy, half my deck Stark, or whatever. But it gives you a lot of deck building options that you never really had before. The Alliance and the Treaty agendas just never really did it. This
But
one,
it basically requires you to build a deck without an agenda.
that's the other thing, is you have to be no agenda, and you can't use any of the no agenda cards.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is shitty.
But maybe it's a thing. I mean, we haven't had an opportunity to do this yet.
I mean, Mace Tyrell with the Devious Intentions does sound really pretty. So let's go on to the next card, and I think that's you, Nick.
That's me. So the next card we have is Defiance. It's pretty straightforward. Your opponent gains power every turn, and you have more options for your plots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen some deck lists on the internet trying to run Defiance. Mostly I've seen lists on the internet trying to figure out whether or not it's worth
running.
that as your agenda in order to get 3 other plots in your deck.
Because the downside, the prize 1 on each of your plot cards, not a big deal. Negligible downside. The downside is it doesn't really do anything.
Yeah,
Like 3 extra plots is good, but it's not.
3 extra plots, and none of them have to be Betrayal at the Wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not running Betrayal of the Wall for the 8th plot.
You can run Betrayal at the Wall as your 11th plot.
No, it's exactly.
I want to do a 3 bang, but it's red.
So you can't run Betrayal of the Wall. Well, you
Yeah,
can run Betrayal of the
but
Wall.
you
it
can,
has
The
but
to be-
rules
not-
say Betrayal at the Wall. The rules say that your plot deck must contain exactly 7 cards.
I suppose.
And Betrayal at the Wall states increase the size of your plot deck by 1.
That's an interesting
Yeah.
interaction.
So, I mean, theoretically, you might be able to run Betrayal at the Wall as an
But I
11th
don't
plot.
think running Betrayal at the Wall 11 plot is even
That-
remotely
that-
worth it. It's
No.
having 3 extra plots, having
You're
4 extra
already
plots,
not
again,
cycling plots. Yeah.
I look at this and I go, it's just. First of all, you have to have a deck where you don't want to cycle plots
Right.
because you're not going to. In most games, you're probably not going to get
Like a Barra Rush deck or
a
something.
Barra Rush deck. Like, it has to be a deck that wins. That wins probably before turn 5.
Right, so that you're not, like,
And
laden down with useless plots later on in the game.
And you can have some pretty powerfully effective plots in this deck.
Like maybe a Lannister No Agenda deck, where you just use those extra plots in order to further complicate your opponent's plans. Like,
you can't really run no agenda deck because this is an agenda.
right,
You don't get
but
your
you don't
House
get
Clegane
House Clegane Brigands.
That's the downside.
Is that the only thing you lose? Yeah, because nobody cares about Kevin.
Nobody cares
Who
about
cares
Kevin.
about Kevin?
You only run it because
He's only in there because he's better to have than not have.
yeah.
Right, but maybe having the 3 extra plots, like just those options, might be better than House Clegane. No.
No.
Okay, never mind.
But if you have a deck that doesn't need an agenda and wants some
So a
really
Baratheon No
powerful,
Agenda.
yeah,
Because all their No Agenda cards aren't very good. Their Shireen isn't very good, and the Black Crown Knights are marginal at best.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe having the 3 extra plots is useful for a deck like that. I
where you
don't
have
know if that's a deck.
where you have just sort of
Yeah.
violently different plots that can come out with
A Greyjoy No Agenda deck? Instead of Aaron, run that.
Why would you ever want to not run Aaron? I mean,
And
a
silence
Targaryen No
also.
Agenda deck? No, Braden Screamers.
Yeah, yeah. You're not-
Like, that's the thing, is they have made No Agenda good enough now that it represents a majority of the metagame.
Yeah. Well, look
So,
at there was
substantial.
a graph that we saw put up that showed the rise of different agendas.
Yes,
No agenda.
Fancy Flight put that up last
Oh,
week,
yeah.
yeah.
Last week, there's a no agenda had a huge jump in it, and it was
It was like 50% of the metagame.
50% of the metagame
Now,
no agenda.
that being said, a lot of agendas are house dependent, even if they're not
Right,
printed
so
house
if those
dependent.
houses aren't seeing play, the agendas
Those houses aren't seeing play, the agendas aren't seeing play, and the no agendas are really 6 different.
Mostly it was the fact that Greyjoy dominated those 2 leagues.
Yeah.
And they dominated on the back of No Agenda Choke,
Yeah.
which won our store championship.
Yeah.
Surprise.
So, on the whole, these 2 agendas don't really do it for me yet. I think that as the card pool gets bigger, they might.
Conquest.
The
Maybe
issue with that is what's happening in November.
Yeah.
They've already announced that they're going to create a limited card pool.
Yes.
These two agendas coming out right now, full of
Already,
three-quarters
cards
of the
that are already
cards.
prized.
3/4 of the cards in this pack are prized or interact with prize.
Yeah.
And so what this is doing, these don't help with these cards.
Right, they don't do anything for the cards in the pack, and the cards from before don't need those cards yet. Don't need those agendas yet.
A year from now,
Could be
maybe
awesome.
we can revisit these when we've had another cycle out after this one. As it stands right now, these 2 are functionless with the other 18 cards in this pack.
That I have to agree with. I mean, and it's a shame because they're both very powerful cards. If they had been released a year ago, like when they were doing the Song of the Sea cycle,
Yeah.
and these had come out, I think that they would have seen an enormous amount of play.
But maybe you stick to Defiance and with river plots.
No.
And you have options with rivers or options with cities.
But okay, there's 2 good river plots, and then you're scrambling to find 4 other river plots just to make those plots good enough.
yeah, I suppose.
One of those river plots is coming up in this pack.
Alright.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
let's go to card 3.
Yep. Card 3 is start of the Baratheon cards is Seasoned Smuggler.
2 strength for 1 gold. Pretty good. 1 icon for 1 gold is not great, but it's good enough.
It's got a naval enhancement.
The naval enhancement's really good.
That's pretty solid.
Prized 1, not a huge downside. It
No.
interacts with all the smuggler cards from the Song of the Sea cycle.
Yeah.
The response, however, is just insane.
Yep.
After you win a power challenge in which it participated, which means you can just go in and then just naval them in, choose and stand a prize card. a lot of the time you're going to be standing this dude.
Well, given what's in this
Oh,
pack
yeah.
right now, pretty much 100% of the time.
Currently,
Currently,
right now,
100% of the time you're standing that dude.
Right, but even when we go
I mean,
into
he's
Champion's Purse...
He's the only standable prized Baratheon card in there.
Right,
There are
but it
only
doesn't have to be a prized Baratheon.
Doesn't
Well,
have to
no,
be
but
prized
there are
Baratheon
only a
card.
couple of other cards in here
Agreed.
that are standable and
That are
prized. And I
standable
don't
prizes.
think very many of them you're going to want to be playing.
Oh, I just...
There.
You mean you don't play
I don't-
Doran
I don't
Martell
know.
with your Season Smuggler?
with Conquest
No,
though.
they only gain prized when they leave play.
Oh darn.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't really work that way, sadly. But coming up later in this cycle, there is a new wall.
We're going to see plenty of things that are valuable with this, but
Right
Oh,
now,
I've been
not
looking
great.
at that deck with the new wall. I've been looking at
But
that.
he does have Vigilance, essentially.
Yeah.
yeah.
Worst case, he's a 1 strength, or 2 strength, 1 gold, naval enhancement with Vigilance.
And there's nothing wrong.
No, there's nothing wrong with that at all. He is almost as good as River Runner. If that's all he does.
He'd be really interesting in melee.
He had agreed, so I allowed him
Yes,
to-
because, well, no, because he's prized in melee.
And prized in melee is bad.
Prized in melee is super bad.
Oh, but
Super.
participating in all of the challenges.
Theoretically, yes.
Mhm.
That's true.
Okay.
For better or worse.
Yeah.
All right. Good.
He's playable. He's not spectacular yet.
Yeah. He's
But
good.
he
card.
might be.
He might be excellent.
Yeah.
He could be spectacular in 6 months.
I think he's good right now.
He's
He's
right now. He's worse than River Runner
Truth.
because River Runner gains an intrigue icon when it stands itself, and River
not
Runner doesn't
yeah,
have prized.
Yeah, true. And it's not prized.
And River Runner gains renown from Noble Cause because he costs 2. That's the one thing against Season Smugglers that he doesn't cost 2.
He doesn't
He
work
doesn't cost 2.
He doesn't work with
gain
Noble
renown.
Cause. All right, so card 4.
Card 4. Bitter Bridge.
Oh my God.
We built this city. We built this city.
Card is insane.
What the shit?
Yeah.
Yeah. How is that not priced?
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
1 cold.
I'm glad
living.
it's unique.
I'm glad it's
Yeah,
unique.
sure.
I'm glad it's unique. This guy's priced. This guy's not.
Like, this isn't going to be a second Pentoshi Manor.
Not quite.
Not quite.
It's not going to have that level of use because you can only have
That's
one.
right, you can only have the one.
Yeah.
That's what the mistake they made with Pentoshi Manor.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they didn't make it unique.
Yeah.
This card is a little like a Brienne that can't die to claim.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's sick.
I mean, there is a lot of location hate, at least in our meta right now.
Right, but a lot
Lot
of
of
it
options.
is character based.
Yeah.
That's true.
There's an awful lot of character based
All-
location hate.
there's-
yeah.
Like
yeah.
newly made lords and Wintertime Marauders
Just
coming
really, so
around.
really at worst, it just locks up. Just locks.
This-
that
this
guy's really
gives-
just doesn't do anything.
Basically, to the Greyjoy coming, this gives Baratheon the defense to
Yeah,
the Greyjoy.
As
hate.
first player, you can kneel this and say that Ice Fisherman can't trigger its ability.
it's true.
Oh man,
Oh,
anti-choke.
man. There we go. We're gonna anti-choke.
No, there's nothing wrong with
I
that.
think I have one of them in my Noble Cause deck right
I
now.
think you should have one of them in almost every deck. Maybe not Noble.
I think
Cause.
I have 3 of them
Not
here.
Noble Cause, why?
One of them should be.
No, Noble Cause only runs 38 dudes. You have to have non-dude cards.
I disagree.
Just want all the dudes.
You need cards
I
for
didn't-
setup, sir.
I didn't put one
Set up some
into.
dudes.
I made a mistake and didn't put one into the Black Sails deck. That'd be a good card.
That would
But
be
yeah,
a very good card
no,
for Black
it
Sails,
should
yeah.
be one of these in pretty much every
Yeah,
bear deck.
I
At
agree
least.
completely.
At least. Yeah.
And now let's go on to a card that probably isn't going to see a lot of play.
So Rite of Conquest.
It's garbage. We can move on.
Okay, I'm done.
On to the next house.
Yeah. All right, so now we're on to Greyjoy. That's me. So we've got Enraged Crewman. It's 3 for 3, military with a naval and a power icon. He's got melee, he's a raider. You know, not like the Hammerhorn Raiders who are Hammerhorn guys in a boat.
Yep.
You know, clearly he's not one of those guys. Anyway, if you win a challenge,
Maybe he's on a Hammerhorn boat.
Hammerhorn boat. He's the raider.
He's the raider on the
There are
boat.
2 Enraged Crewmen. Those are the Hammerhorn Raiders.
They are the raiders on
Yeah,
Hammerhorn, yes.
Exactly. If you win a challenge in which Enraged Crewman participated by 4 or more strength as the attacker, the challenge is considered unopposed. This isn't a new thing for Greyjoy.
No.
They had the Drum Beater who did a similar effect. His
So-
was a kneel effect.
One might almost argue that this guy is the master beater.
No one's arguing that.
I hate you a little bit right now.
I mean, Drum Beater is cheaper
He's
and doesn't
bigger.
have to be in the challenge.
Bigger.
And he has melee.
And this guy's bigger and has melee. Like, he's got more of a chance of
Yeah.
actually
And
winning
naval.
that challenge. And naval. and a second icon over Drum Beater, and all of those things that make him more than Drum Beater. But he doesn't be participating in the challenge.
That's true. That is one downside. You don't just automatically have it as a passive.
Yeah.
Don't you have to
Drum
kneel
Beater
him?
had to kneel, yeah.
Yeah, so this guy's actually better.
He's better. He's
because he
more
can be
efficient.
in the challenge.
Yeah, he's more efficient.
Whereas
right?
Drum Beater couldn't
Drum
be
Beater
in the
couldn't
challenge.
be in the challenge. He had to sit back.
Yeah.
I
And
like
this guy,
him.
theoretically, he could be in multiple challenges because there are cards that stand guys.
Well, you know what I like about this guy? He costs 3. He doesn't
You
cost
like
4.
that. Oh, he doesn't cost 4. Yes, okay.
And playing
Fair.
Greyjoy, everything costs 4.
Everything costs fucking
Everything
4.
costs
yeah.
4. This guy costs not 4.
I'll-
My Greyjoy deck has things 1, 2, and 4.
Hey, look, now
The
you
Greyjoy deck I built post-fac is like 10 3-drops.
Yeah?
Oh, it's all 3-drops.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, I like him. He's not.
I think he's not good now.
I'm not in love with him.
He's gonna be really good when the old way picks back up. Like after this choke phenomenon kind of dies off a little bit and people start picking up old way again, he's gonna be enormous in that old way.
The other tip with this guy is he's not sufficient alone.
That's true because he can't win the challenge by 4 or more on his own.
Right. Unless he's
Whereas-
defend. Well, he can actually. Yeah, with Scouting Vessel.
Oh, Scouting Vessel, yes, you
But
can
again,
reduce them by
reduce
to
from
0.
0, and then he's got 4 in there.
Whereas Hammerhorn Raiders could just increase claim on his own.
Yeah.
He's a little less efficient than Hammerhorn Raiders, but he's cheaper and he has better different stuff.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the naval icon.
Agreed, yeah. Yeah, the naval icon's huge.
Yeah.
So now the best Greyjoy card.
The Reaver Song.
What the shit?
This makes for a very, very different Greyjoy deck than anything we've probably ever seen before.
Scares the shit out
Greyjoy
of me.
next to maybe like Targaryen Lannister is probably the most location heavy.
Martel.
Martell, that's
Martel's
true.
pretty location.
Oh yeah, they got some good stuff back
But
too.
Greyjoy has so many things that trigger off of having more locations in play.
Warships.
Warships. It's all locations.
Yeah.
And then you throw in this. And that's just straight up destroy all locations. There's no condition.
That's right.
All you do is win dominance, and which isn't hard for Greyjoy.
Which Greyjoy can do
With
quite
or without
easily.
locations, it's usually not a problem.
Yeah.
And then just locations are gone. I mean,
So this time last year, there was a hugely popular Greyjoy no character deck that was just locations. It was like 42 locations, 18 events.
yeah.
And it ran things like the locations that turn into dudes.
Yeah.
This is the opposite of that.
Yep.
You would want to run probably the 4 or 5 most important locations
Yeah.
and maybe some things that allow you to recur them like Iron War.
Maybe height because it doesn't blow up.
This card, I think, will create a new Greyjoy archetype. You don't often see brand new flagship cards that are this powerful.
No, you don't.
The last one that I think we saw was probably Bloodthirst. But Bloodthirst didn't create a new archetype. It just changed an old archetype.
Refine the old yeah.
Noble Cause, maybe?
I mean, this turns the archetype on it. Well, Bearer Rush was a thing. Now it's just Bearer Rushy Rush.
Then Black Sails?
Yeah, Black Sail's pretty good.
But
But
honestly,
this card
this
takes
is,
what Greyjoy does and turns it on its head.
Yeah, this
Does the exact
yeah,
opposite.
exactly. Like Greyjoy decks are known for being high power locations. This card says, don't care.
Yeah. We're not
Don't
doing
care
that.
none about that.
No.
Just blow up all the locations. This card would have been excellent if they hadn't restricted Red Keep.
Yeah.
It's still excellent, but it
How
might.
does this interact with Shadows locations?
What do you mean?
Well, if I have a location in Shadows, can I?
Well, it's not in play.
So I can still play a location into Shadows.
It's coming out of shadows.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's right.
So
You
like
can
this
play
interacts
locations.
well with the Grey Goose.
The absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
I think that's it right now.
probably.
Well, you could play like King's Landing, but that's not really very good.
No.
Yeah.
But Grey Goose with this and actually is a pretty good advantage.
It's a very good combo, I think, already,
Yeah.
just on its own. Especially since the Grey Goose is going to be in. I don't think it's the Grey Goose.
the
I
Grey
think it's the Grey
Ghost.
Ghost.
Yeah.
The Grey Goose is
I'm
going to
pretty
be
sure-
in
pretty
sure
shadows
it's the
by
Grey
the time
Ghost.
Pretty
dominance
sure it's the Grey
happens.
Ghost. Yeah.
Because
Exactly.
you'll have one that unopposed challenge, maybe with your enraged crewmen.
Maybe we're Enraged Crewman, yeah.
Yeah, your Hammerhorn Raider.
Yeah.
And then it'll already slide back into shadows, and then
Gone.
like no influence cost, no gold cost, just it gets paper shielded a little bit.
Shielded a lot.
But maybe that's fine.
Yeah.
Maybe just run 3 of them and ways to get them back out of your
Maybe you
graveyard.
run a paper shield again. Paper
Maybe
shield,
you run your own paper shield?
Yeah,
Well, you're
shield
already
paper.
running finger dances, so it's fine.
I suppose.
Yeah, true that.
Dance fingers, especially in this deck where you have extra Ironborn because you're not using the slot locations.
Yeah, that's true, eh?
That makes finger dance a lot better.
And the refugee they just got back is an Ironborn.
Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And since you can't run the Good Brothers anymore, you need the refugees for
That's
zero
right.
cost guys. The Good Brothers are useless.
No, because you can still run the one that saves a location.
Yes, you can.
I suppose you can. And actually, you may be able to run.
And you can run the one that can't be killed or discarded because you're still going to have more locations than them.
My one location is more than their zero.
Exactly.
Yeah. Maybe this works well
Maybe
with
this
the
is
Good Brothers.
yeah.
Except for the one that
Just
you don't want to use.
Not the 0 cost and not the 3 cost.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yep.
All right, Clay.
Yeah, so we're back to cards that don't matter. So 2 Lannister. Card Furry Armsman.
Furry Armsman.
Furry
Furry
Armsman.
He would be really good if Enemy Informer didn't exist.
Yes, enemy. That's the problem. Is it's the exact same strength and icons and cost as Enemy Informer, and Enemy Informer has been in the Lannister deck since this game has started.
Since Corset.
Since Corset.
I mean,
That's one of the staples of the Lannister deck is Enemy Informer. It's not.
if they ever restrict Enemy Informer, Furry Armsman probably gets
gets a look at.
gets some time in the sun. But maybe Enemy Informer just becomes the Lannister restricted card.
I can see that.
Very few cards in Lannister are automatic 3-ofs in every deck.
Yeah, which the Enemy Informer is really it.
Yeah, like automatic 3-of?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah,
much.
that
Yeah.
comes into play. Kneel and
Yeah,
do.
dude. Yeah.
So,
Automatic
unfortunately,
three.
He's alright,
he's a
I think.
good card. He just takes the place of a card that you're not going to be removing from your decks.
Now here's the downside. I like it.
Yeah, but you like weird stuff.
I like it. I actually
He's-
hope for more cool Frey cards the next few sets.
Okay.
I think he's kind of cool.
If you get even really one more Frey card with an effect that you
What
want,
do you even care about a 6 strength in military for? Just kneel their guy and win with
that's
2.
true. It's only military. It doesn't count for intrigue, does it?
It is
Yeah,
just military. Yeah.
just kneel their military guy and win with 2 strength in military with a real character.
You could play the can't remember the name of the plot. I
And
think
then he
it's
just dies to Rob Stark.
Games of yeah, he does die to I'm sorry, like a bitch. Play Game of Thrones and then he doesn't kneel in intrigue challenges, then intrigues and
He's
then
useful for
military.
defending military challenges.
I don't even know who you are anymore.
It's a terrible, terrible idea.
Little bad.
But
He's good for defending military challenges. That's
Again,
true.
He would be good if you had other Frey cards that had effects that you want.
If, like, say, the Lannister refugee were House Fred.
Yeah.
yeah, which is
If
the-
you're running 3 or 4
No.
other Frey cards, it's like, hey, this guy is awesome.
He isn't awesome, even if you have a billion Frey guys. He wins a military challenge and then dies to Rob Stark.
yeah.
Only if Rob Stark's in the challenge.
It doesn't
How many
matter.
Rob Starks are in all of your decks put together?
7 in each.
There you go.
I bought all of the copies of whatever pack that was.
So you could just stick Rob
Just so I
Stark
could have all the
everywhere.
Rob Starks, yes.
I need more Rob Stark. Alright, let's move on to the next card.
Alright, so next card is the attachment Trader.
It's a very good card.
It's a very good
That is
card.
a very good card. It,
Um,
in my Lannister deck, I usually run 2 enslaved. It is now 1 enslaved and a Trader.
That's very reasonable.
There are a couple of cards that just discard traders, aren't there?
And there's
Not
Trader.
very
Targ.
many.
There's
Mostly in Targ.
there's Trader hate and Targ, but
There isn't a lot of trader hate. I like the fact that it costs 0 instead of the 1 for Milk of a Poppy.
yeah.
Yep.
I don't like the fact that it only blanks in a challenge. There's a
Yeah.
lot of guys out there that have passive text that you kind of don't want them to have, even when they're not in a challenge.
Yep.
And Trader is a card that makes me wonder whether or not Milk of a Poppy is just better than it.
So as an aside, this gives Rob the middle finger versus Frey Armsman.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Because that's
Awesome.
totally what you need to do.
I think it's a perfectly good card. 0 cost is nice.
0 cost is nice.
It shouldn't be 0 cost. Like, it should be 2 cost and have better text because it's Lannister.
Yes. Agreed.
Yeah.
Like, it should be 2 cost, and instead of having this little, while participating in challenge, treat as text box for blank, it should have attached character loses. Text box is blank, loses all icons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It should be more expensive than Milk of a Poppy and better because it's Lannister, instead of cheaper and worse.
Yeah.
That's my thought. Just because, like, thematically, Lannister should be able to afford a better effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, the card itself is still fine. It's perfectly adequate.
Still a card.
It's
yeah.
still like I said, it's one of in my deck, and I think it's.
Yeah.
I don't see anything wrong with it being.
So we're on card 10 then, and we have hit the Martell cards, and we are.
Indeed.
Oh man, just Martell the last year and a half has just been pissed
Do you have a
on.
problem with the Crypt Keeper?
Let me tell you a story. It
Yo.
happened to a friend of mine. Doran Martell.
This guy's really good if all your opponents run prize cards and you're doing a lot of discarding.
Which might
Actually
happen
happen.
in the future,
In
like
6 months.
4 or 5 months from now, when all the packs are out. There could be a glut of prized cards in the metagame.
Yep.
But right now, he's a Learned Crest in a house that doesn't care about Learned Crests. He's prized 2 in a deck that cares quite a bit about giving its opponent a lead.
Yep.
And he dies to Rob Stark.
Yep.
And a lot of things that he's just.
And he's thematically, he doesn't make any sense at all. Stealth
Oh, it makes sense because he doesn't have a military icon, right? He's not sneaking up behind someone
and murdering them.
and murdering
He's
them.
he's performing like
Like a
political
web of plans,
machinations
exactly.
in the back. Yeah, whatever.
It actually makes sense.
Bullshit.
But anyway,
Yeah, whatever. It's bullshit.
I don't. He's probably the better of the two characters. He's not going to see any play until like 4 months from now,
Yeah.
guaranteed.
like he may be good in 4 months.
He might be, yeah.
He may very well be good.
He's
in 4
certainly
months.
going to be better than her. Spy from Starfall. That's weird text for Martell. I get that this is a theme that they're going to develop over the course of the cycle. Each house is going to get one of these pro icon stripping cards or something.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense out of Martell because Martell has always been about stripping icons.
Yep.
Like, all the way from the very beginning of their existence in the LCG.
Yeah.
And this kind of rewards characters for having their icons stripped. It's not a good card. In a different house, this would be a good card. And when the other versions of this card come out, they might be better.
Mm-hmm.
This card will never see play.
This card's not good.
It's garbage and thematically irrelevant.
Well, it's too expensive. It's priced. Like that effect could be kind of cool. It could be a thing. You go to a challenge, strip your own guy's icon. Something.
Nope.
But
Nope.
it's not
Nope.
for that.
Nope. Nope. Okay. Card 12. You murdered her children, you son of a bitch.
What the fuck?
I'm going to kill you and everyone you've ever known.
Right now, with the loss of things like Princess Plans, Melisandre's schemes, a lot of the recursion decks are kind of dead.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That makes this card much, much better.
Yep.
In the face of On My Oath, it's still only okay against things like Jaime Lannister or whatever. But Preston's gone, so there's going to be fewer Kingsguard abuse type interactions going on.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Prize 2 is expensive.
Mhm.
2 influence is expensive since Red Keep is gone.
Yep.
This card is still amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, this card is dumb.
I think this card,
It prevents your opponent from attacking you with their whatever their win condition is.
this is not a Bloodthirst deck. I think this is a Quentin deck card. Or Hollow Hill if it comes back.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
was gonna say a weird new Hollow Hill deck if it comes
I
out.
could see that.
But I think out of the Bloodthirst deck, you just can't really afford to give your opponent that much of a lead.
No.
But
I mean, it really
the
depends.
effect is insane.
There are a lot of decks that rely really, really heavily on a couple of characters.
Sure, yeah.
This game's just
Yeah.
a shit show.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's probably worth 2 power, you know, they've got a guy who's making a whole bunch of outpost challenges or a whole bunch of renown challenges. It might be worth giving him 2 power to stop him from receiving the 6 power a turn.
If we look at it like a metagame choice, what decks are there out there that this card is especially good against? Maybe a Lannister No Agenda, getting rid of Tywin Lannister or House Clegane Brigands, specifically. Against Stark, they're not really that concerned about any individual card.
They don't care for losing.
Kindly Man, but Kindly Man isn't often attacking before it gets sacrificed.
Actually, Kindly Man usually isn't attacking. Yeah, because it's attacking character, right?
Yeah, Baratheon.
It might kill Northern Cavalry.
Baratheon doesn't care anymore.
Baratheon doesn't have one dude that it cares about anymore at all, no. Like Willis Tyrell, actually. Really good against Willis Tyrell, especially since they don't have melee schemes anymore.
Yeah.
So all they really have is Maester Kralin and then like a prayer or 2.
It's really good against Bloodthirst.
Yes, well,
The
kind
gu-
of. It's
it-
not
the-
good against Red Viper.
It's good against the card that isn't Red Viper, the couple of cards that aren't Red Viper, right?
Right, yeah, like
If someone's running like
Ariane's.
Duped Arianes or whatever, it's pretty good.
Can be saved. There's no cannot be saved text.
That's true.
So it's really bad against Greyjoy.
It's really good against Greyjoy.
It's really bad against duplicates.
Yeah.
So on the whole, I think it's a well-balanced card that the metagame needs to develop more before it becomes good.
I think so.
Right now, we're a really aggro-heavy metagame, and aggro decks don't usually care about single characters.
No.
So as the metagame develops and control decks start to come back up again, I think that it'll get more valuable.
That and Oberon Shield that's a pretty cool interaction.
Oh, I guess like keep them from saving
Yeah,
with
use
Oberyn Shield Bearer?
Oberyn Shield Bearer, use that to keep them from saving. Boom, that guy's gone.
Yeah, but that's 2 cards in a specific situation.
Alright,
I'm not sure. Well, it's a good interaction.
it's a good interaction,
Yeah.
is what I was saying, yeah. Interesting interaction. Yeah, I don't know.
Who has Stark?
I have Stark.
Great.
So it goes on to me. Card number 13, Catelyn Stark. Cost.
And here's to you, Mrs. Robinson. Jesus loves you more.
There's 2 things that really stand out about this card to me.
Prize 2.
Prized 2 is one of them,
And the other one's
and
that
the response.
Yeah.
Like we discussed this card when we did our preview podcast, and
God damn it.
this card is just the nuttiest. If you can find a way to trigger the response without her dying or getting discarded.
Yeah.
So if you can find a way to bounce her back to your hand, or cold hands her multiple times.
Yeah.
That's really it.
Yeah.
But if you can manage it, oh my god.
Yeah.
Like, recurring Jon Snows, I guess? I don't know what the best guy to recur with her is, but anything, really.
Anything, really.
It's intense, but she's just. Anyway, I don't see much use for Catelyn.
She's way worse than the jumping cat.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's way worse than the jumping cat. That's the downside.
She's just.
Really good ability.
Super strong ability if they come out with more ways for Stark to bring characters back to their hand or whatever, like ways to abuse her response.
She's
she'd be
not.
much better.
This is not worth losing. Like, she's alright. Like, she's Vicon 3. It's not worth losing her and to
Power. To get that response.
Some guy back. Which, I mean, could be a really great guy.
I like the
Stark's got plenty of good dudes.
Yeah.
The cold hands interaction is really
Cold hands
good
interactions
But
were cool.
But then you're running cold hands. And
in a Stark deck.
You're already
and-
running cold hands.
Well, not necessarily. My Siege deck isn't.
Oh, really?
Just because he doesn't have a military icon.
True.
makes sense.
And I'm also just running Jumping Cat there because she's like constantly able
And
to
cold hands
defend.
is restricted.
No, it's not. It's restricted in melee.
Oh, that makes so much more sense. Carry on.
Okay.
I was wondering why that was down there. All right.
Yeah,
That's the-
Catelyn, she's really, really good. She's not replacing Jumping Cat in Stark decks,
No.
sadly.
Sadly.
Next Stark card.
All right, we have Show of
This card is
Force.
fucking amazing.
You feel that?
What the shit, Lana?
This card turns on turn 1 Siege of Winterfell wins.
Yes. Yes, it does.
Because
Yep.
it gives you a third military challenge you can win during the challenges phase.
Mm-hmm.
With the same guys. And
With the same
no-
guys you defended with. Exactly. It's insane. Show of Force is probably
They're just stupid.
one of my favorite cards in this pack.
Fuck.
I think it just, the things it does for the Siege of Winterfell deck. I mean, I think Siege of Winterfell might be better than Old Way just because of all the different ways it has right now to
It's got more
double and
interaction,
triple
yeah.
up on challenges. Like Old Way, all it has is ambush or whatever, ambush from the sea or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Or Assault of the Kraken. Sorry, Assault of the Kraken. And that doesn't really work if they have defenders.
No.
Dark Siege, it doesn't care if you have defenders. It just jumps its dudes in there and just, oh man. I'm running 2 Serial Pharrells in mine now.
2 Serial Pharrells?
Yeah, just
awesome.
for the turn 1 win. Just if you get double epic, then it just jumps out, jumps in, jumps out, jumps in, jumps out, jumps in.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can win on turn 1 pretty easily.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
A couple of renowned guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So, anyways, enough jerking off about Siege of Winterfell. What card number was that?
Oh, he's fine.
That was 14, so we're on to 15.
Oh, okay. Targ. Spoiler alert. For those of you that haven't read the books,
Yeah, for those guys that haven't read the
card
books.
15 is Aegon Targaryen.
The baffled king composing hallelujah.
This dude is...
This guy was really, really, really good last week.
Yes. Right
He was
up,
awesome last
right
week.
up until Wednesday afternoon.
Wait up, yeah.
Yeah, right up to Wednesday. It's just he's still interesting.
I think he's cool.
I think there's a Dragon Pit deck out there. Like, there is a Targ Burn deck out there.
I think so.
And this guy slots in perfectly. He basically replaces Threat from the North.
Yep.
Yep.
Um,
The downside is he hits himself until you attach something.
you can give him Dragon. I'm sure you can find a way to give him the Dragon trait.
Or an attachment.
Or just stick an attachment
He has no
on.
attachments. He has no attachments.
I should read the fucking
Yeah.
He's built to not save himself.
Built to die. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the Learned Crest is excellent for outwitting, which is
Yep.
something the Targaryen decks might start wanting to do.
Yep.
I think there's a Targaryen Maester deck waiting to come to the fore, and I think
Yeah.
Aegon Targaryen is going to be a part of that deck.
I think so. Targaryen Maesterburn?
Maester Burn, Maester Burn.
Targaryen Maesterburn Dragon?
Dragon
Dragon
Maester
Pit
Burn.
Maesterburn.
Dragon Pitter Burn.
Dragon Pit Burn.
Burn
Dragon
Pit,
Pit Burn.
Pitster.
Pits.
wait,
Armpit.
Armpit Burn.
Armpit Burn.
You guys fuck off.
Chafing.
Targaryen Chafe.
I'm done. We're good. My point is irrelevant now because we have Dragon Chafe.
Dragon Chafe.
Lysano Mar.
Yeah.
That's an excellent response.
It
This
is.
card, this is an excellent card.
It's just information.
Unfortunately, it's a 3 gold Targaryen Tricon,
Yeah.
of which there's already plenty.
Yep. And he doesn't.
And he's a mercenary.
I wish he were a Maester.
I wish you were Mason.
He has a really cool effect that gives you a lot of game information, but doesn't.
Do
Do
anything.
Do anything. No, you just sit
But
there.
he has a Learned Crest, which is useful, and Tricon, which means he's at that playable point for Targaryens. If
Yep.
his response is the thing you need, he doesn't make your deck worse by including him over something else.
No.
He's probably excellent in the No Agenda Griff deck.
I mean, to be fair, he does the same thing as Egan's Hill without actually killing a thing.
Right, but he also is a character more easily put into play.
True.
He can win challenges for you,
It's true, and he's a Tricon.
and he works very well with Aegon's Hill. Because you look at their hand and you can determine whether it's worth it to Egan's Hill their hand.
It's
Like in
always
Melee,
worth
no,
it.
in Melee,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
you can see a person's hand and see whether or not you get them or them or them.
It's true.
I have been farting around with a summer attachment control deck for years now. I think this guy might be one of the missing links.
Yeah.
Him and Aegon Targaryen both are supremely useful in a deck like that.
That kind of information, and there must be some cards that have benefit looking at your opponent's hand. Like, there's got to be something
I'm sure there is.
knowledge-wise that we haven't looked at.
Well,
before.
okay, information is useful if you're better than your opponent.
Information is useful if you're better than your opponent, and information is useful if you have cards that, like, it's nice to see if they have cancels. There might be
That's right.
something about discarding. You know, if Buddy's got a handful of Dark Stars.
Yeah, maybe you don't enter challenge.
Yeah.
A handful of Dark Stars.
That guy's in a
7
very,
Dark Stars.
That guy's in a very sad
That's
spot.
maybe the
Yeah.
scariest thing I've ever heard. Oh, jeez. Okay, so card 17.
Yes.
All right, so we're now on to some Greyjoy start cards. I wonder who it is. So it's a new Theon Greyjoy.
the fuck?
Everybody dies.
Valar Morghulis.
Morghulis.
So I have one in my Stark deck and one in my Greyjoy deck.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be tempted to put more than one in my Greyjoy deck.
No, there's not enough spots.
Yeah, I just like having him out and having a dupe and he can kill himself.
Shit,
Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares?
like him.
He's super sick.
Yeah.
I mean, he's actually a little less sick with the refugees back.
No, it makes him even better.
But the refugees are really good fodder.
Not everybody's going to be playing refugees, but your refugees are really good fodder.
That's true. Yeah, most people are gonna be playing refugees.
Maybe most people are going to be playing refugees, but most of the time, I don't know, maybe. Like,
I mean, you still have to win dominance with refugees, right? So
it's deck specific. Like, against an aggro deck, he's not good anyway, because they're just going to have the
Have a
board
dude
filled
to
up.
kill.
But against a fledgling control deck like a Lannister No Agenda, they're not going to be running Refugee of the Mountains or whatever anyway.
Bloodthirst or something.
Bloodthirst isn't going to be running refugees.
No, Bloodthirst is going to be really complaining they have to kill someone.
It doesn't kill the Red Viper.
No, that's true. It doesn't kill the Red Viper, but it kills Ariane.
Kills everything that isn't the Red Viper.
Which is Ariane.
No, those
No.
decks have to evolve. They can't just be 6-man Princess Plains decks anymore.
No.
Now they're 11-man decks.
Another 11-man decks. But I'm saying the rest of it doesn't matter.
They don't care. No, it's
They
true.
don't care.
But
They actually do care because you do not want to have just the Red Viper the entire game because you're going to lose.
I
the military
did against
challenge.
Mark last weekend, and it won me the game.
Alright, well, chances are you're going to lose the military challenge at some point or something like
Just
that.
trip them up. That's what I did. Turn 2 trip, Red Viper.
There you go.
Yeah, I just won the game on the back of that. It was good enough.
Yeah.
But anyway, this card's great.
He's excellent.
And he's Stark Greyjoy, which is
and you
exactly
don't
where you
want
want him.
you don't want 2 of them in your deck because you don't want to draw him in the wrong matchups.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, he's a dead card against Tunnels.
Tunnels gives no fucks.
He's a dead card against, like, Noble Cause.
Yep.
Against Old Way. Like, the spammy decks.
Spammy decks.
He's not great. Siege, he's not great against.
Yeah.
He's good in Siege.
Good in Siege.
He's very good in Siege.
He's good in Stark and Greyjoy, and that's where he is.
Yeah, exactly. Card 18.
Card 18.
Card 18.
Tycho Nestorius.
With that other girl in town, looking like a pair of clowns down.
He's a unique character. He's 3 cost, 3 strength, intrigue, and a power icon. He's from Bravos. Price 2, no attachments. Response: after you count income, pay a gold to draw a card, and he gives you +1 gold. That's awesome.
No, it's terrible.
He's amazing.
No, I'm just
He
kidding.
hasn't made the cut in any of my decks yet.
He either gives you a card or a gold.
And he gives
Yeah,
your
but he
opponent
costs
2
you
power.
3, and he's price 2, and he doesn't have a military icon, and
He's got a
he's
cool
no
ability, though.
crest.
Big
no
target
crest.
on his head.
He should have a money crest. Well, he kind of has a money crest.
He does have a money crest. There's a money crest right there.
He's
Very cool card.
cool.
Very cool card. Very powerful card.
He still hasn't made it into any of my decks either.
Card 19.
Alright, so we have Seizing the Prize. It's a I'd run this if its text were blank.
Okay, right now its text is blank.
Right now it's tight. I was gonna say yeah.
But as this cycle goes on, this text is going to become more and more valuable.
Yep.
There will be prized cards being played out of every house, I imagine.
In fact, that Greyjoy deck I was just talking about probably wants this.
Almost certainly.
High
yeah.
initiative, high gold. 1 claim sucks. For
Imagine
Greyjoy.
this against Conquest.
Yeah.
Seems really good.
Yeah.
Yep. Seems really
Yeah.
I think that the stats are great. 4-10-1. Very few decks are going to be able to win initiative against this.
Yeah.
4 gold is enormous.
Like, it's the 4-10 that's hitting me. Like, that combination is just beautiful.
Yeah.
It's almost take them by surprise without the downside.
Without the downside. Yeah.
And this will scare off a lot of taking by surprise.
Well,
I think so, yeah.
yeah. Well,
It's so easy to get to.
With King's Roads
12.
and Bay of Ices, yeah.
It's so easy to get the most out of this card too. It's because you look down on the table and you see prize cards everywhere.
You just go,
Give
discard.
me them all at once. I'm gonna discard all your dudes.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, this card is very, very good and can only get better as the year goes on.
Yeah, this card you'll see a lot of this over the next year.
As we've seen over the last couple cycles, they
Take
don't
this
just
and like a wish list.
Nice restricted card, though.
Yeah, nice restricted card.
As we've seen over the last couple cycles, they don't just develop a keyword or a mechanic for one cycle and then drop it completely. They continue to develop mechanics
trickle it
over the
out.
course. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is going to keep getting better forever.
Yeah, like I don't think we're gonna see prize cards in this cycle and then never see another prize card again.
I mean, people were afraid of that for Naval 2 cycles ago.
There's might actually be almost more naval coming out now
Than there was during that cycle.
It's
Yeah.
like naval's super common now. And I think they're just trying to get the card pool to have a sufficient number of naval cards. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's the thing, is they want to make Black Sails good enough to be played, and that requires more and more and more and more naval cards.
Agreed.
Card number 20, Crossing the Mummer's Ford. This card was really, really good
Until last Wednesday.
until last Wednesday. Knights of the Hollow Hills stopped being a dominant archetype and started being kind of tier 2-ish. You can't use Red Wine Straits anymore, or Befouled River. You can't use the best starter plots out of Hollow Hill anymore, like the river starter plots.
Right.
Because they had got eraded to counting 5 extra cards a command. So you can't start river, river, this, river, river. Like, you can't just build a river chain out of Hollow Hill anymore. I think Hollow Hill is still the best place for river plots. I think you just can't start with, like, Red Wine Straits. You have to start somewhere else. Say, the put a card at your command on top of your decked one. Like the smaller tempo ones.
Yeah.
Or even just the draw card one. And then you go Crossing the Mummer's Ford or something else, and then Crossing the Mummer's Ford, and then Crossing the Ruby Ford. Things that just small edges in tempo that also allow you to build up your hand using Crossing the Mummer's Ford. I say Hollow Hill is the best place for it because Hollow Hill is the best or an easiest way to use Floodwater, which allows you to trigger a river plot in your used pile as though it were just revealed, which lets you Crossing the Mummer's Ford again, or trigger the plot above Crossing the Mummer's Ford and then get another Mummer's Ford sort of thing. It's very useful in that way. Rivers are hamstrung by low stats. There's one dual claim river, there is one high initiative river, and 2 high gold rivers. The rest of them are like 1s and 2s and 3s everywhere. So unless you're able to counteract the downside of running rivers, then you're hamstringing yourself for the sake of 3 or 4 cards. And there are easier ways to draw cards and still have access to good plots. So if you can't make up for it, then they're no good. And if you can, then they're going to find a way to errata or restrict your fucking deck.
Yeah,
Pretty much.
So bitter. Do we have top 3 cards out of this pack?
I believe I do.
I've got an honorable mention.
Okay, I have an honorable mention as well.
Alright.
My first honorable mention is the Egan Targaryen. If the House of Dreams Dragon Pit deck comes out...
Because his life was just too short.
That's right, yes. If the Dragon Pit deck comes around, I think Egan Targaryen's going to be a fundamental part of that deck. If a Targaryen Maester deck comes around, I think Egan Targaryen's going to be a fundamental part of that deck. He's not a flagship, but he's exceptionally powerful nonetheless. I think that in light of the traditional burn decks going away, this guy kind of picks up where they left off. And without a Targaryen burn deck in the metagame, little dudes are going to run wild. So you kind of need a little dude like Egan Targaryen to balance that out. That's why I have him in my honorable mentions.
Fair. Well, do you have another honorable mention? You want to go through both of yours?
Sure. I don't know what my second one is.
Alright, so I've got You Murdered Her Children. I think it's a really cool card. I think it's got a really awesome effect. I don't think we're ready for it yet. That's my problem. I don't
The
think
metagame
the
isn't there
metagame
yet.
is there yet. I think it will be, but I think it needs some time to mature.
Fair enough. Yeah, the effect it has is incredibly powerful.
Incredibly powerful.
And much better now than it used to be, now that all of the recursion elements have been weakened.
Yeah.
But
I just think it's not.
the control decks aren't there right
So
now.
that's not there right now. It's just not. It's not ready.
I'm assuming these are your two honorable
Those are my
mentions.
two honorable mentions
Okay,
as well. So
we're
the
going to
same
talk
one.
about the same one again.
You haven't
You
murdered?
murder your children. It's same thing. It's like, it's good.
It's good. I think we're gonna see it in the future.
I think we're going to see.
I think there's no question
we're
that
gonna
it
see a
will
lot of
be
it.
played in the future.
I think it's got cool interactions with all the cards that you see now. It interests me.
Absolutely, and it's powerful enough that it's easily the best Martell card that's come out in the last.
If we get
4
more
or 5
stuff like
packs.
this, I'm probably rebuilding my Martell.
Since Alaria Sand came out, it's the best Martell card we've seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, my second honorable mention is Theon Greyjoy.
Oh, really?
I think he's incredibly powerful and very utilitarian for the two decks that are going to use him. I think that the effect that he has is mitigated by the metagame right now. There are just a lot of aggro decks right now.
That's fair.
There are a lot of little dude decks that are looking to fill the board with guys and then use those guys to gain some advantage, whether it's Noble Cause or Siege of Winterfell or Old Way. He's not great against a board full of guys. He's really great against a board with two really good guys, like Red Queen's Faithful and King Robert's Host.
But on the other hand, you have a lot of other solutions for a board full of guys.
Yeah.
I mean,
Do
now that
you?
Westeros Bleeds is
Do you?
restricted, there's fewer solutions.
Yeah.
So you have less
But-
solutions now since the restrictions.
And no
Yeah.
bungle anymore either.
No bungle.
Oh yeah, that's right. I keep forgetting bungle.
They can't bungle it. Ah,
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a lot fewer solutions to a board full of dudes.
there's a lot fewer solutions, but there are still options. I mean,
He is an incremental advantage over the course of a game, for sure. But prized two, also, like, if he dies, your opponent kind of gets some margin back
Yeah.
from that.
But again, in both of those decks, both Stark and Greyjoy, that's not such a bad thing, giving your opponent a little bit of power.
Stark doesn't have an enormous way of crawling
I
back.
suppose that's true.
But at the same time, I mean, maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe you just get enough by killing a couple guys.
Yeah.
But
I
a lot of the time, you're just going to
look at
kill a
this
couple
Theon-
refugees.
I look at this Theon Greyjoy as a Greyjoy card going, you know what? Maybe I'm just going to... Maybe he's going to come into play and kill himself the next turn.
And then just 2 gold to give your opponent 2 power and kill one guy?
Yeah.
That seems terrible.
Because if I'm making a 4-claim power challenge,
Maybe you just want them
maybe
to have
I
the power
want
to
to make
take.
sure I'm making a 4-claim power challenge with one
So in
fewer
the
guy
old
to
way,
play.
that's really good. Yeah,
In the
like
old way,
the
that's
deck that's
really
going to be
good.
running the naval superiorities and stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like, maybe he only survives 2 turns, but I often want my opponent to have more power because I'll
fair.
slow down. Like I'll choke at a certain point.
Nope, that's very fair. So you two have the same second.
We have the same
The same
second.
second, and for the same reason that I chose You Murder
Murder
Children
Children?
as an honorable mention, I choose the Reaver Song.
Because you just don't think it's there yet.
It's just not there. I mean,
Yeah.
I think the cards are in the metagame to play this card. I just don't think we found them yet. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure they're there. Like, I'm not 100% sure this is a thing. It feels like a thing. It feels like it could be really great.
I hope it's a thing because
But
that's a cool.
On
deck.
the other hand, you're basing an entire deck around 3 events. 3 copies of one event. Because if you don't draw into your Reaver Song,
Sure.
I mean, maybe it's a Black Sails deck and you don't need to draw into your Reaver Song.
Yes, okay, so in something like Greyjoy Black Sails,
That could be
and you just run Reaver Songs and cancels.
Yeah.
Reaver
Like
Songs,
To Be a
Finger
Kraken,
Dance, To Be a Kraken.
Finger Dance, Seasick.
Yeah.
Because if your opponent doesn't have any locations, they don't have any influence,
Yep. Because they're probably not
running Hollow Hill.
Hollow Hill.
Not anymore.
And the Red Keep, they're probably not running either.
Yeah.
Well,
Like,
they're probably running something else instead.
so Clay, you also have the Reaver Song for your second honorable mention. I'm assuming
You
it's
have
the same reason.
speech to give that I just gave.
Well, yes, pretty much. I hope the deck's there. That this deck is really cool. If this deck comes out, I think that's a really cool deck.
It's too really frustrating to play.
It'll be very frustrating to play. Black Sails, a Black Sails Greyjoy deck with this in there. I think that'd be kind of interesting. I'd like to see that deck built, see what it does. But yeah, pretty much the same.
So, third
1,
card.
2, 3.
Yeah.
God damn it, Nick.
Okay, I have the Reaver Song for my number 3 card.
I have Theon Greyjoy.
I also have Theon Greyjoy.
So
we covered this. We're good.
my argument with Reaver Song is that the deck is there. It just hasn't been built yet. The cards are certainly there to make the Reaver Song viable. You don't need to worry about developing the theme. You just have to assemble the cards.
Yep.
Oh.
48 dudes, Reaver Song, Black Sails deck. I think it's gonna be viable. I think it's gonna be tier 1. I think it's not gonna be the best Greyjoy deck, but this is the best flagship we've seen in over a year. I think.
Yep.
And I love flagship cards that are actually good ships.
Yeah.
This is a good ship lollipop.
Yep.
Yeah. I just don't see the deck.
I see it.
I don't see it
Oh, I see
together
it.
I
yet.
see it.
I just don't think it's as good as Choke right now.
I see it, and I think it's going to take a lot of play testing
Yes,
from
to
a
find
lot
the right
of people
60 cards.
to find the right 70 something
But-
cards or whatever.
But those cards are there.
Yep. Agreed.
Okay, you guys have Theon.
Theon, yep.
We've already covered. I've covered Theon. I have nothing more to say. He's,
He's the Bomb Diggity.
Theon.
Diggity. The Lorne Ironboard Trader. There's gonna
It's
be
about to
more
get
traders.
really boring.
It's about to get really boring because I think we all have the same 2 cards
Yeah.
at the top two.
Number 2.
Number 2.
Bitterbridge?
Bitterbridge.
So the fact that Baratheon gets a second Brienne of Tarth, sort of, not really, but sort of.
Sort of, yeah.
The fact that it's immune to character-based location hate, really great.
Really good.
Helps against the Greyjoy decks that are
Not running.
enormously
Reaver Song.
popular right now.
Yep.
Right, yes. It won't be as good against Reaver Song decks, but Reaver Song decks are just completely different anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No one is ready to build for Reaver Song decks because they don't exist yet.
They don't exist yet, I think. Yeah, exactly. Like, you don't metagame for something that isn't in the metagame.
Yeah.
But Bitterbridge is just phenomenal.
Card is cool.
Woo! It's so good.
I'm pretty sure on an auto include.
One of auto include in almost every Baratheon deck.
Yeah.
It kind of supplants the Pentoshi mana that you lose.
It's just so cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
1 gold.
Yeah. It could easily be 2 gold. It would not be playable at 2 gold. I think there's nothing really to say about it except for the fact that
It's a
we
good
all
card,
agree
no
it's
cost.
insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then for number 1, we all have
Show of Force.
This
What
card
the
makes
fuck?
Siege of Winterfell tier 1.
Yeah.
Yep.
Auto win, or the ability to win on turn 1 is phenomenally powerful.
Yeah, like Noble Cause decks can win on turn 1, usually win on turn 2.
Usually win
Siege
on
of
turn
Winterfell decks up to this point can win on turn 1, usually win on turn 2 or 3 if it has a bad draw.
Yeah.
This plus 6 to 8 epic events means that on any average setup, it's winning turn 1, turn 2 at the latest.
Yeah.
It is just enormous. Who cares about price 2? You just take
You're taking
take
it
the
all
power
back.
anyway.
It's all coming to you.
It's all coming back to you now.
It doesn't matter how much they do
Turn
things.
around, Bright Eyes.
Can you do this more than once?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
The card
You can
is
do 4 military challenges.
baller.
Yeah.
Card is nuts. It's easily the best card in the pack. There may come a time in the next 6 to 8 months where Siege of Winterfell stops being viable and the aggro decks revert back.
That being said, you have been playing a Siege of Winterfell deck and win a military challenge as a defender, which means someone has to attack you in a military challenge
Yeah,
and lose.
and
That's fine.
Why would I attack this guy on turn 1 or 2? Like,
okay, so the fact if you don't realize that they're running this card, they are only running 2 copies in their deck.
Yeah.
If they don't have it, you military them so that they lose guys.
but only if they lose the challenge.
Right.
I've got a pretty good idea if I'm going to win or lose the challenge.
Do you?
And yeah,
Because they can run like things like Frozen Outpost, Moat Kalen.
yeah. It's just, I don't know. And maybe it's just what I play, but I've usually got a pretty decent idea
That's fair.
if I'm going to win that challenge.
Yeah, you can
It
usually look at
also
the board
means
and be
that
like,
you're not losing that. They're not making that challenge against you. Like if it's a rattlesnake, then it's a really good one.
Yeah.
So until next time, I'm Matt.
I'm Clay.
I'm Nick.
Keep your stick on the ice.